guys. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you. And thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your leadership and always fighting for our children. Thank you. You know, I always say you can judge and you should judge a society based on how it treats its children. And I want to thank you for being such a fighter. It is great to be in the House of Labor. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I know on this evening there's so many things you could be doing with your time other than being here, but you've chosen to give us this time to be together, and I really do appreciate it. So thank you for that. Amen. Amen. So I'll share with you a couple of my observations about these days and my thoughts about where we can and should be. And then I'd like to hear from you. It's great to be back in Waterloo. And one of the things I love about my time here is that I get to hear from folks who are leaders in their community and hear about how you're doing and how you're feeling. And that's one of the things that's most helpful to me about doing these kinds of events and having these kinds of visits. So I'll share with you some of my thoughts, and then we're going to pass around a microphone. So, well, what interesting times we're living in, huh? It's just, you know what, somebody said to me, Kamala, it seems like, especially when you're in D.C., you keep getting interviewed by the press and you just keep using the word trouble, you know, like, this is very troubling. I'm very troubled by, and my friend said to me, well, why don't you just tell them what you tell us? It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. Yeah, I'm all about real talk these days. But it's really important, I think, that we remember that, you know, yes, this is a moment in time that is requiring us to ask who we are as a nation. And we all know we're better than this. That's why we're here. And we all know that we're prepared to fight for the best of who we are. That's why we're here. And it's important to remember also that the framers of our Constitution, the founders of our nation, in their brilliance, they imagined a moment like this. They imagined a moment like this. So they designed for us this beautiful system of democracy, imperfect though it may be, flawed though it may be, where we would have these checks and balances in place in the event that there would be the kind of abuse of power, dare I say tyranny, that we are witnessing and experiencing today. So let's remember that. Our democracy is being tested. And yeah, if you think of it like a natural disaster, you know, some of the shingles are falling off the house, but the house is still standing. That's right, sister. The house is still standing. Barely, but we're still standing. And that's why we're here, because we know so much is at risk that we can't afford to fall asleep on this one. And so, but that's how I think about it, that this is a moment that is requiring us then to fight for the best of who we are. And so let us also remember, there is nothing that has been about achievement or progress in our nation that came without a fight. Nothing that was about social justice, that was about equality, that was about workers' rights. Nothing that we have achieved that has been about progress came without a fight. We're up for a fight. We like a good fight. We were born out of a good fight. So that's how I think about this moment in time. We're up for this. And you know, I come from a family of fighters. My parents met when they were active in the civil rights movement in the 1960s. My sister, we joke that we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full time marching and shouting. And they were shouting for justice, right? In fact, it was the heroes of that civil rights movement that included people like Thurgood Marshall, the lawyers, right, who were translating the passion from the streets to the courtrooms of our country, who were doing the work of reminding folks of that promise we articulated in 1776 that we're all equal and should be treated that way. And that's what inspired me to actually want to become a lawyer. And when I graduated from law school, my mother, who raised me, and my sister, you know, she said, okay, Kamala, so what are you going to do in your fight for justice? And I said, I've decided to become a prosecutor. And I said, the reason is because I want to be in a position where I can be a voice for the most vulnerable and voiceless. And I also want to be inside a system that I know has not always represented justice and has also represented injustice to so many communities and must be reformed. And so that's the work that I took on. And I walked in the courtroom then on my first day and every day since. And the words that I spoke when I walked in that courtroom were, Kamala Harris for the people. And that phrase, for the people, is really a symbol of our system of justice, because it means two things when we say that. One, it means a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. The second point is, for the people, it's all people, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of the party with which they're registered to vote, regardless of where they live geographically, regardless of the language their grandmother speaks. It's about all the people. And so, as you heard from Rhonda, that was the work I did. Early in my career, I specialized on crimes and violence affecting children and women, because they deserve to have a voice. That was about giving them strength and dignity without judgment. Later, when I was elected as the first woman district attorney of San Francisco and first woman of color to be elected district attorney in that state of 40 million people, it was the work of saying for the people when I created initiatives with labor that were about addressing young people who had been arrested for drugs and getting them jobs and into apprenticeship programs. Because I knew that we had a system that was built based on that failed war on drugs that led to a system of mass incarceration, and we needed to reform the system. For the people, when I was Attorney General of California, running the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, meant, as Rhonda told you, taking on the big banks of the United States, taking on the pharmaceutical companies, taking on the big oil companies. And people would tell me, that'll be the end of your career, Kamala, for you to take them on. But we took them on and we won, because it was about standing with working people, standing with families, and saying that the power is in the people. And when we collectively fight, we win. And so today I stand before you again for the people, and in this case, fully prepared to defeat Donald Trump. And I'll tell you that, this is the reason I'm running. This is the reason I'm running. I'm running because the people deserve to have a voice that is about justice. And I will say, Waterloo, I do believe in 2020, justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot when in our country today, the family that owns Walmart makes more in 60 seconds than the average American family makes in a whole year. Justice is on the ballot when the average American family cannot afford a $400 unexpected expense, and more than half of American families will go bankrupt with a $500 hospital bill. Justice is on the ballot when our students are so overwhelmed by student loan debt that many of them have come up to me with tears in their eyes saying, I might have to not be able to ever have children because I don't think I can afford to raise a family and pay off these student loans. Justice is on the ballot when we're looking at a climate crisis where in the next 12 years, if we do nothing, it will be irreversible. And this is about the water we need to drink and the air we need to breathe. Yet we have people in Washington, D.C. who've been pushing science fiction instead of science fact because they are in the back pocket of the big oil companies. Justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot when we look at the fact that there are so many people in our country who are in need of mental health services, be they those who have fought in our military, to farmers, to children who are growing up in poverty. Yet we've had a healthcare system that has been backward because all it does is recognize the healthcare needs that we have from the neck down instead of understanding if you did address the issues from the neck up, it might be about the thing that gives people dignity and capacity to thrive. Justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot when we have a system of mass incarceration that has incarcerated more human beings than any other country in the so-called civilized world. Justice is on the ballot when women in America are under attack in terms of their access to reproductive health care, and you got a bunch of out-of-date politicians telling women what to do with their own bodies. Justice is on the ballot. And justice is on the ballot when we got a criminal living in the White House. You know, when people say, well, you know, that sounds, you know, harsh. Well, you know what? Take it from this former prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. And I know a confession when I see one. And frankly, somebody should tell Donald Trump he has a right to remain silent. Because here's the thing. He's basically a walking indictment in a red tie. Speak truth. I don't want to waste your time. Justice is on the ballot. And that's why I'm running. Justice is on the ballot. And, you know, I talked to the brothers and sisters of the UAW before we came in earlier. And, you know, the other thing that we have to recognize, which is also about why I only listen to the pundits so much about what they say about the 2020 election, because, you know, they compare it a lot to 2016. But here's the thing we know. 2020 will not be 2016. It will not be. And for a number of reasons, including that, you know, he may have run on this platform that was about Make America Great Again, which we all knew would require a question about again and exactly for whom, and certainly sounded like he was talking about going back to something, right, which made us all ask, back before what? Back before the Voting Rights Act, before the Civil Rights Act, before federal minimum wage, the Fair Housing Act, Roe v. Wade, because we're not going back. We're not going back. But the other thing about him that we know now for certain is that he sells people out. He sold people out. So he campaigned on a promise that was about how he was going to help working people. Everybody from farmers to auto workers. He said, I got you. I see you. I'll take care of you. And then what did he do? He comes in, passes a tax bill benefiting the top 1% in the biggest corporations of America, to the point that 60 of the biggest corporations in America paid no taxes last year. Who here paid no taxes last year? He engages in so-called trade policy by tweet based on unilateral action born out of a fragile ego that has resulted in farmers here in Iowa and other states looking at bankruptcy because, you see, they've got soybeans rotting in bins. Why? Well, because they did the hard work of cultivating a market to sell those soybeans to China, which has now been cut off. Because of the tariffs, American families will pay at least $1,000 more a year on everything from clothing to washing machines. Already, because of those tariffs, 300,000 people have lost their jobs. And then we look at, and I've stood with them on the strike lines, auto workers who during the time that they are on strike are getting paid $250 a week and trying to hold up a family and take care of their family. He sold out working people. He sold out our values with policies that have been about putting babies in cages and separating children from their parents in the name of border security, when in fact it is a human rights abuse being committed by the United States government. Fanning the flames of hate. People ask me after El Paso, well, do you think he was responsible for that massacre? And I said, well, you know, he didn't pull the trigger, but he's certainly been tweeting out the ammunition. Sold out our values. Sold out our country. Because here's the thing. The President of the United States is also the Commander-in-Chief. And the Commander-in-Chief has as her highest priority the responsibility to concern herself with our nation's security and the security of the homeland. But yet what we've had in Donald Trump is someone who, on the issue of the fact of Russia's interference in the election of the President of the United States, prefers to take the word of the Russian president over the word of the American intelligence community. On the subject of an American student who was tortured and later died, prefers to take the word of a North Korean dictator over the word of the American intelligence community. On the subject of a journalist who was assassinated, a journalist who had American credentials, prefers to take the word of a Saudi prince over the word of the American intelligence community. We need a new commander-in-chief. So the point is obvious, right? I mean, I kind of laugh it off and say, you know, look, dude gotta go. Dude gotta go, right? And we need to turn the page. It's time to turn the page. But in so doing, I will tell you, I feel very strongly about this, that in turning the page, we need to have someone on that debate stage who can successfully prosecute the case against 4 more years of Donald Trump, and I believe it will take a prosecutor to do that. And not only to win, but to heal as a nation. Because let's admit it, folks are exhausted and have been feeling beaten down. To turn the page, we should be prepared to write the next chapter and do that in a way that is about unifying our country, knowing that despite what some have been trying to say, which is that, you know, we have that divide us and to push hate and division, you know, to have us point fingers at each other and turn it on each other, what we need in our next leader, and what I am prepared to be, is someone who will lead in a way that is about unifying our nation, knowing that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And so what does that look like? It's about fighting for an America we believe in. And it's about doing it in a way that we know that there isn't a lot that's necessarily fair or right about what's going on in our country today. And we need to address these issues and do it in a way that understands, regardless of where you live, your race, your gender, the party with which you're registered to vote, or the language your grandmother speaks. These are common concerns among families that also have common hopes and dreams. And so what do you have in mind, Kamala, you're asking? Well, I'm thinking about that dad who was sitting at his kitchen table after midnight when everybody else has gone to bed. And he's sitting there trying to figure out how they're going to get through the end of the month. Because he's one of those families that knows that a $400 unexpected expense is going to topple the stability of that family. Which is why in the America we believe in, we will implement my tax plan, which is to give families that make less than $100,000 a year a tax credit of up to $6,000 a year that they can take home at up to $500 a month. Economists have described my plan as the most significant middle-class tax cut we will have had in generations. In the America we believe in, we know that regardless of where somebody lives, their race, their political affiliation, that somewhere in America tonight there is a mom who is calling 911 because her child has a temperature that is out of control, and they tell her, we'll take the child to the emergency room. So she packs up, maybe all the children, to put them in the back seat and drive to the hospital. And then she's sitting in the car in the parking lot of the hospital, looking at those sliding glass doors of the emergency room, pausing, because she knows if she walks through those doors, she's going to be out of pocket a $1,000 to $5,000 deductible. Which is why in the America we believe in, we know that, and we are prepared to have a Medicare for All plan that will do the following: bring down costs, cover everybody, including people with pre-existing conditions, extend Medicare coverage to hearing aids, to dental, to vision, and this is going to be a big difference between mine and some of my colleagues on that debate stage. One, we're not raising middle-class taxes, and two, I'm not taking away your choice. Because I heard from a lot of people that said, Kamala, don't take away my choice between a private plan or a public plan. And I heard that. So we're not taking away choice. And we're also making the transition period, unlike the other plans that are 4 months, 10 months, because I heard from our brothers and sisters in labor who said, hey, we negotiated where we didn't take a raise and our wages remained stagnant so we could have greater coverage under our health care plan. So we want to be able to hold on to what we bargained for and more time to be able to bargain under what might be a new system. In an America we believe in, we're going to deal with the fact that bullets don't know whether somebody is a Republican or Democrat. And that right now, the children of our community, and by the way, I'll tell you, I was raised to believe the children of the community are the children of the community. And so right now in America, we have our babies, elementary, middle, and high school students who've been going back to school over the last couple of months to endure a drill during which they are taught about how to hide in a closet in the event that there is a mass shooter roaming the hallways of their school. They are terrified. Our children are terrified and could care less who their parent voted for in the last election. So in the America we believe in, we will address this by saying, hey, you know what? Those folks in Congress just, you know what? Don't have courage. Don't have courage to agree. It's a false choice to say that you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. That's a false choice. Don't have the courage to say, hey, fine if you want to go hunting, but we need reasonable gun safety laws, including universal background checks and a renewal of the assault weapons ban. So in the America we believe in, we're going to put in place a process by which we'll give the United States Congress, with your help, I'm going to get elected, and we're going to allow the United States Congress 100 days to pull their act together on this and put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not, and now this is a point of disagreement between me and some of the folks on the debate stage, I'm prepared to take executive action. And by executive action, to require a comprehensive background check requirement and to ban the importation of assault weapons into our country. Because we need action. And so these are some of the reasons I'm running for president. And I just want to comment on one other thing, and then I'd love to hear from everybody. But the one other thing I want to just address, because, you know, I've been in this campaign now almost 10 months, and I just think you got to have real talk, right? And again, I just don't want to waste your time. And so one of the things that's been coming up over the course of the campaign, I think of it as the elephant in the room, but really it's the donkey in the room. This conversation about electability, right? And we've heard it, right? And it's directed at my campaign. Well, you know, I don't know if America is ready for a woman, much less a woman of color, to be president of the United States. I think she's great, but I just don't know if my neighbors are there yet, right? You know, maybe it's not your turn. Maybe it's not your time. Oh, that's going to be really difficult. Well, I bring this up to just tell you that this is a conversation that is not new to me. And in fact, it's a conversation that I've heard in every election I have, and now here's the operative word, won. And I share this with you not to say anything about myself, but to say everything about you. Because the people don't hear that. And we as a people have an ability, and especially the people of Iowa. You did this for Barack Obama. You have the ability to see what can be, even when others can't see it. You have the ability to see what can be, unburdened by what has been. You have the ability, and it is part of the American spirit, to say, I'm not going to sit back and wait for somebody to give me permission to believe in what is possible. We will make what is possible actual. Because we believe and are deep of faith and have the ability to see what can be. And so when I think about this, it is in the context of the America that we believe in and have faith in. An America, yes, where everyone has access to health care, and it is not a function of how much money you have in your pocket. An America where we pass reasonable gun safety laws. An America where we deal with this climate crisis, knowing it is within our full control and ability to make sure that our babies will in 20 years, much less 12 years, be sure to be on a planet that allows them clean air and clean water. That we believe in an America where we have the ability to support working families and have paid family leave for 6 months and give women equal pay for equal work. Where we have the ability to see in America, where we pay teachers their value and give them the dignity that they deserve. And that we believe in an America where we know that it will be commonplace that when you see a perfect stranger in their face, you will see a neighbor. And that we will get back to that place where we see our collective interest and the fact that we all have so much more in common than what separates us. I believe in that America. And I know it is achievable. And so I'm here to thank you, to ask for your help. I hope you stand in Kamala's corner at the caucuses. And I so appreciate you. So thank you very much. We can ask questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Kamala Harris, y'all. Okay, we're going to take a couple of Q&A. Yes, we have someone here up front.
Hi. Senator Harris, thank you for taking the time to speak to us. My name is Alex. I'm a supporter and a recent college graduate, originally from the Twin Cities.
Take a deep breath.
Sorry, it came a lot quicker than I thought.
We're good. Take your time.
So many Americans rely on Social Security for retirement, yet its future is uncertain for my generation. Some projections say that it will be depleted by 2035, nearly 25 years before my generation even retires. You obviously have combated this, as you have teamed up with other senators on the Social Security Expansion Act.
Yeah.
Can you explain your plan to solve the Social Security crisis if and when you become president?
Yeah. Yes, when. I fully intend to win. It's not going to be easy, but I fully intend to win. So part of the bill that I'm sponsoring, co-sponsoring, is the expansion, but we also have to raise the caps on who's paying in, and we need to, instead of it being $128,000 a year, it needs to be much higher. And so I would jump to $250,000 and then above, all should be paying in. So let's raise the cap. But it's fundamental, it's a basic point for me. We need to keep our promise. We made a promise to working people who put into their lives and put their investment into the Social Security system. And it is our Social Security system that has then allowed people who have lived a long life of hard work the dignity that should come with retirement after that period of time. So it's about extending it. But let's also be really clear, insight that you probably already have. These people who passed that tax bill One of the things that's at stake, there's so much at stake in this election, is, you know, that tax bill is going to contribute a $1.5 trillion deficit. So when you're talking about your generation and what you're going to pay, and they fully intend, I believe, to take that money out of Medicaid and out of Social Security. So that's all at stake in a very real way. And Social Security is something I feel very strongly about, and that's obviously the plan about how we're going to put money into it, and we will be solvent by doing that. Yeah. Thank you.
And we have another question over here.
We have many questions.
Yes, I'm sure you're aware of the fact that there's a number of black and brown men who have been victimized by mass incarceration in America.
Yes.
My question is, in the past you have been against giving them compensation if they have been proven innocent. I've followed this, okay?
Okay.
So my question is, do you now have another perspective on people who have been convicted, incarcerated, and then found innocent? Mm-hmm. Do you have a new perspective on their being allowed to be compensated financially for what they have undergone as innocent individuals?
I have never changed my position, which is that they should be compensated. I was Attorney General of California, and I headed an office of 5,000 people that on any given day had 50,000 matters, and represented state agencies as their attorney. So what you are referring to, rightly, with frustration and justified criticism, is a policy that one of those agencies had. And so my office was the attorney for that agency, having to do the client's bidding. I have never been in favor of a policy that is about not giving people just compensation when they have been wrongfully convicted. And that has not changed, and it will not change when I'm president. So thank you for that.
Okay. We have a hand back here.
Thank you for being a prosecutor. Their first question was on Social Security. The young man has nothing to worry about because the federal government right now takes the Social Security money for income tax right out of your check before you do. Mm-hmm. People at UAW, we get a pension. Teachers at UNI, they get a pension. No, we don't. You've got an investment that gives you money when you retire. We have an investment. And that money will be added to their income, even if it's tax deductible income, because they modify the adjusted gross income. So they tax 50% or 85% of your Social Security check. So what difference does it make if you get any check or not? What we need is a constitutional passage of law and a hopefully compensation to those who've been double taxed, because when we pay FICA, it's not deductible. When we get our Social Security check, the taxes are withheld. So we get a lower check. We need to change that because the state of Iowa doesn't tax your pension from Social Security, and the federal government sure as heck shouldn't either. Can you support passing Congress a bill to end all taxes on your Social Security retirement benefit?
I would take a look at such a bill. The details would matter, and I appreciate the point you're making about the equities of it all. And the point you're raising is, in my mind, a point that is not only about Social Security, it's about so much else. It is also about what's happening in terms of defined benefits for pension, which are being wiped out. In so many states that have right-to-work laws and are really just wholesale hostile to organized labor. I am also very aware of the fact that, look, there was a time where when people graduated high school or college, they went to work somewhere, and that was the place from which they retired. In America today, people are getting laid off in their early 60s when they were not prepared to retire. They are losing their health care as a result of it. So part of it is in terms of my Medicare for All plan, I'm looking at what we need to do to also separate health care from employer, so that your health coverage, especially as we all age, we need more of it, is not a function of where you work. And then your employer also doesn't get to dictate what you get in terms of coverage, and that's part of the way that I think about it. Because when we're talking about people in senior years, people are living a lot longer than all of these systems were designed to deal with. And we're going to have to do some real adjustments, and it will not be and should not be on the backs of working people, which is why, to answer the young man's question, I am going to increase the caps so that more people are paying into Social Security. It's also why I'm going to decouple and separate health insurance from employers. And then also take a real look at what we need to do out of the Department of Labor. Because I will tell you, as I've told some folks earlier, I intend to hire a cabinet that reflects the priorities of working people in America, including a Secretary of Labor who actually comes from labor. So that all these fancy terms that corporations think up to make it sound good, that it'll be very clear and people will know what actually works and what doesn't for working people. So I appreciate the point, and I'll take a look at that as well. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have a question over here from this young lady here.
Good evening, Senator Harris.
Good
I am
evening.
an 8th grade student in Mason City, Iowa. I was born in India and came to the United States when I was 1 year old, and today I would like to talk about my civil rights. Both my parents are physicians in a rural community, and all my life I've grown up thinking that the United States is my home. But recently I've come to find out that despite being in the country for 13 years, we are still considered resident aliens. We are stuck in a decades-long green card backlog. We live in constant uncertainty and fear of deportation. When I turn 21, I will no longer be dependent on my parents and will have to self-deport myself. That is the cost I will pay for living in this country for 20 years. My parents cannot get a green card for the next 70 years because of the country cap rule. I am also a dreamer, just like the DACA kids. I have no protection. My future is uncertain. You are proud of your mother and your Indian heritage. You could have been in my place if you were born in India. Senator Harris, you are a champion of the S-386 bill, and I want to give you a deep, heartful thanks for that. Can we expect a relief from you? Can you please talk to Senator Durbin to remove his hold on the S-386 bill so that we too can truly live the American dream?
Absolutely. That was really great. You did good. You did good. And that's why I know our future is bright. Yes is the answer, and to your point, I have been a champion of that bill. And but let's expand the conversation, because the point that you made is a very important one, and you had the courage to stand up in this crowd of all these adults that you don't know at a presidential forum to ask that question. That's incredible what you just did. That's incredible. That's really a sign of leadership. That's leadership. And I will tell you, you spoke of my mother, who had probably the most profound influence on my life of anybody. And she had lots of advice, and I'll share with you some of it. But one of it is she said, Kamala, you may be the first to do many things. Make sure you're not the last. And that's about creating a path for others. And she also would tell me, don't you ever let anybody tell you who you are. You tell them who you are. And that's what you just did. But let's talk about immigration in a broader context, because there is also on this topic something that this administration has done that has, I believe, been consciously and intentionally about creating a hierarchy among immigrants. and saying, oh, well, if you come to the country with health care, then you're going to get one kind of status. If you're college educated, then you're going to get a certain kind of status. And creating a hierarchy in a way that's been about trying to pit immigrants against each other. And I'm never going to buy into that system. I'm never going to buy into that system. Let's be clear about who we are as a nation. Because again, real talk. Unless you are Native American, or your ancestors were kidnapped and brought over on a slave ship, your people are immigrants. And we have to recognize that this administration has been playing games with this in a way that's been about trying to scapegoat immigrants for the fact that this administration has done nothing for working people, and then starts to talk about, oh, the favored immigrant versus the disfavored immigrant. So I'm not buying into that either, and I say that to say that that is part of the dialogue that we have to be aware of and hear it when it's happening. Because that is a violation of who we have said we are in terms of being a nation of immigrants and treating all people as equal in terms of seeing their capacity and their ability to participate and to help this country grow. But yes, again, on the direct question you asked, and thank you for that. Thank you.
Can I add one more point?
Sure.
So right now, you know, the S-386 is a bipartisan bill, and it is the only bill where the Democrats and the Republicans agree on. And it is you have championed this bill, and it's one of your own colleagues, Senator Durbin, who has put a hold on this. And it is affecting our quality of life in a very bad way. We are so restricted, it's like indentured servitude. And if I look at this audience, at least one person will have a doctor, a brown doctor, or a doctor from an Indian origin. And the next time you see a doctor and you ask them what they're going through mentally on a daily basis, instead of caring about the patients, every day is it's a day of uncertainty. Every day we are afraid of losing our status. We can't go and visit our sick parents in India. Every day we go outside the country. We cannot come back because of the fear of being kicked out. So our kids are going to age out, and despite living here, contributing to the country, serving in a rural community, I don't think anybody, maybe we are not a vote bank, so nobody cares about us, but for 10 years we've been, this has been going on, and it is reaching a tipping point, and now we are going to come to each and every of your events till you talk to Senator Durbin to remove his hold.
Oh, this has been happening at every one of my events. You're not the first.
I know,
no,
I know.
And I appreciate the advocacy, and that's why I support it.
Yes,
and
you are the champion of the bill, and he is holding it at ransom. He's holding hundreds and thousands of physicians, scientists, people who are contributing to the economy just because, I don't know, I don't want to use the word, but
he's not here to defend himself, so what I will do is, as I said, you know my position on the issue. As you have said, I am a leader on it, so you don't have to convince me of the merits, because I agree, and I also appreciate your frustration and your concern and the emotion with which you're expressing it. It is real, and it is right. So I hear you, and thank you, and I stand with you on this issue. Okay? I do. Okay. Yes.
All right, we have time for one more question. Okay, can we get two quick ones?
Take your time.
I'm sorry. Anyways, it's families like you that make this country great.
Right.
But I'm here for my brother and my mother. I lost them both to pancreatic cancer. My mom's 54. And of course, it was Obama's fault. I'm joking, but what's the point for continuing research for the NCI, NIH, and getting congressmen and senators? There's too many people with this disease. The 10-year survival rate is like 2%.
I know.
I'm sorry, and it's not right.
I know.
And I'm sorry.
You have nothing to be sorry for. You have nothing to be sorry for. And I lost my mother to cancer. It sucks. It really does. It really does. And it's why I feel so passionately, and to me it really is personal, like it is for you, about what we've got to do. For anyone who's had the experience, and God willing, you don't have to have the experience, but what you and I know is it's taking your family member to chemo appointments. Cancer is something where it's not like a steady thing. There are plateaus and then they drop. It's on any given moment something happens. It's I like to cook. It's like trying to cook something that they can hold down and that they have an appetite to eat. It's somebody who's going through chemo, trying to get them clothes that are soft enough that don't irritate their skin. It's looking at medical charts, where you look at the medical chart, and I'm not a doctor, I don't know if you are, I'm not, but I know well enough to know that the drugs on these charts are different and don't match up. I had one of the people that was treating my mother say, hey, has anybody talked to you about anticipatory grief? Which is a word I had never heard, but when I heard it, it made perfect sense. Which is you're grieving the loss of somebody you haven't yet lost. And so that's why I feel so strongly about the fact that on top of all of that, nobody should also have to worry about how you're going to pay the bills, and whether treating your mother and taking care of her is going to also mean that you lose your house. Because that's inhumane. On the piece that you're talking about, scientific research, you couldn't be more right. And they've been shutting down public research. And so the irony of it is my mother was a scientist. She had two goals in her life: to raise her two daughters and end breast cancer. She was a breast cancer researcher, and then she dies of cancer. But a lot of her work was about public research. She never went to a pharmaceutical company or a private thing. And it was about saying, look, these are diseases that impact so many people, and instead of having cancer research be, because so much of it is about who funds the research, right? So rich people like, I got this pain here, let's research that, right? Well, you want to have public research so that it's about the things that affect everybody regardless of their income. Pancreatic cancer, she had colon cancer, my mother did. And we've got to improve the research. We've got to improve the funding. And I promise you, because this is personal to me, in honor of my mother, that the public funding and the support of NIH is something that is deeply personal to me, and you have my promise that it will be one of my highest priorities. In the name of your mother and mine. Okay? Okay?
My name is Dan Moeller, and I came from Indianapolis to see you, Kamala.
Oh, boy.
Yes,
Wow.
and I don't have a question, but I have a positive observation.
Okay.
John Kennedy was my hero, and I believe his greatest political asset was the same as yours, which is a beautiful smile and a great sense of humor, backed by a brilliant mind and a tough character who really cared for this country. You will make a great president with that. One last thing. You will be a great president. One last thing. My wife, God bless her soul, was the ultimate Democrat. She worked for Birch Bayh in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
She was a good friend of Julia Carson. She was a friend of Senator Cantwell from Washington. And she collected pins, political pins, all the way back to Dewey and so forth. This is her favorite one that she left me, and I want you to have it. And here's what it says, and I hope everybody here can understand this. Those who say it cannot be done shouldn't interrupt the people doing it.
wife's name?
Barbara.
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 Thank
yeah.
you to Barbara.
Her name was Barbara Mahern at
Barbara
that time.
Mahern. Yes,
And,
we must speak her
call,
name.
Call Senator
Cantwell.
Yeah, Maria, and
Yeah.
we stayed with her and her mom, Rose.
Okay. And Barbara Mahern, we spoke her
Barbara
name.
Mahern,
She is
yeah.
present. She is here.
Read that
She
one
is
more time,
here.
too.
Okay, I'm going to read it one more time. Those who say it cannot be done shouldn't interrupt the people doing it.
Thank you. Senator Kamala Harris.
When opportunity knock, you don't send anyone to get